Well, hello. I'm standing here in front of Bear Butte in Sturgis, South Dakota for another exciting episode of Pens in Use. This is the show where I talk about the fountain pens and inks that I've been using throughout the week. And this week, I'm in Sturgis, so this is also an episode of Pens on the Road. I'm in a $55 motel room, but I'll share it with you at the end of this video because I'm not sure how I got it for $55, and neither was the motel clerk, but I don't care. I'm going to enjoy it tonight. And I'm going to share some pens with you. So let's dive into it. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And what do you think of Sturgis? Is it a motorcycle-y mess? Or does it have some redeeming qualities? Spoilers, I think that this $55 motel room is a redeeming quality. So let us know down in the comments. So let's dive into the pens. Since I am on the road, I don't have my usual setup here. But in my pen case that always goes with me to work and everywhere, I have my pens laid out so you can see them. So I have a Parker Duofold Centennial, which has become my daily writer pen for this week, possibly next. Out of a long hibernation, I have my PenBBS 355 with a Nemosine broad nib, Rexall Monogram, also out of hibernation because I surprisingly didn't empty it out yet, Artisan Classic with a double broad nib, Pelikan M800 with a broad nib, Noodler's Boston Safety Pen, this week's review. Lost my place here. Sailor 1911 Ringless with a music nib. A Waterman's Ideal 52, which blows my mind that that's not empty yet, but I'll bet it's gasping at fumes. Geha 722 was that my review this week? I don't remember. And finally a Senator Matte Gray and Silver, the Silver Fox. Normally, this is where I pop back to my face and say I'm going to write it all down in a Bomo art journal, but guess what? Bomo art journal is 100 and some miles away. So we're going to write this down on, I do have some Tomoe River paper. I thought I'd use the desk pad here, but that was me opening the drawer. No desk pad. So luckily I was going to do some letter writing. Because really, what do you do for fun in Sturgis if you don't ride a motorcycle? So I have some Tomoe River paper. In case you didn't know, today is Palindrome Day, which is, I don't normally write the numbers for the year, but apparently if you write it backwards, that doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah, it does. February 20th, 2020. February 20th. Oh, it doesn't work. Apparently you have to write it differently than that. Apparently you have to write... Okay, never mind. I just looked at this post. It's something I was looking at just before I was ready to write. This person does not know what day it is. Palindrome Day is past. That's what I get for all those hours of driving. My brain is hamburger now. All right, let's talk about something I can be intelligent about. Let's talk about pens. So my first pen, let's get this a little further up so you can actually see the pen. I've got a preview screen when I'm using this because I'm not on my regular. That's about a ½ inch by an inch. So this is my Parker Duofold Centennial. Modern pen. People accuse me of not having any. I do. So let's get this first one lined up and then the rest will fall into place. So Parker Duofold. With a fine nib. That's why it works as a daily writer. That's a very broad fine nib, but you know, it is what it is. And the ink in it is Parker Quink Black. Which is actually a pretty nice black. That was my go-to ink for many years before the rainbow of colors out there swayed me. And you know, it may not be an exciting black, it may not be a blackety black, but it's somewhat water resistant and looks decent on the paper. That's not sheen, that's just reflection because it's still drying. It's also kind of a wet pen. So I'm curious what their broad is like. My next pen, speaking of broads, is a PenBBS 355. This is the one that's kind of like a coned bulk filler. So as you saw, that was a complete bust. It froze on that Parker Duofold for the whole rest of the video, so must have made a great first impression. So I'm now at home a day later because, of course, I spent last night trying to make it work. I thought, oh, maybe we'll just zoom in on the writing sample of that pen, and that looked terrible. So I'm just going to redo the whole writing sample, and I had to be at work all morning, so now it's Saturday afternoon, I'm finally getting around to it. And apologies for the lighting, I didn't plan on this, and I don't have my full everything set up. My next pen, could be zoomed out a little, is, what is it, a PenBBS 355 with a Nemosine re-entry broad nib, which is no longer made. I did get one on a Chinese pen, horrible quality. Like the re-entry is almost all chipped off, so won't be bothering with that again. So this is a Nemosine broad, and the ink in it is Callifolio Grenat. And this pen is a good illustration of something I do frequently. You know, people ask, well, do you clean out all these pens? Well, yeah, when they run out of ink, but sometimes like this one, I'll let it sit. Now, what you don't see, which is pretty good, when I filmed this last night, 2 nights ago now, in Sturgis, it started right up like a champ. So, pretty good pen, pretty good seal on it. I just, a little sad that, that whole rating sample I filmed isn't here anymore, because it didn't film. But it also gives me a chance to compare the ink on different kinds of paper, so there is some good in it too. My next pen that I used was a Rexall Monogram, which is a fun, very vintage pen. It doesn't have quite the nib of the Waterman 52. It does have a neat little catch mechanism, so it's a little harder to just accidentally deploy the lever. Not great, but it's there. So a nice touch. So this is a Rexall Monogram. This is a fun ink because it changes color as it sits there. Platinum Classic. And it's a iron gall ink. I think I forgot to mention that. Citrus Black. Speaking of camera malfunctions, Monday's first impression is going to be a reform of some kind. The name is escaping me at the moment. Filmed the video totally without this camera here. This one, running at all. So that one was my fault. I don't know what happened down in Sturgis. It just froze on that Parker Duofold, and that was all she wrote. Oh, I keep using that pun. All right, so worth pointing out that from my original writing sample, you can see how much darker it's gotten over since I filmed this Thursday night. My next pen is an Artisan Classic from JPL. I will say this because this is what happened when I filmed his writing sample. This also started up like a champ after, I don't know, a 3-week hiatus or so. I wanted to give it a break just to see how well it held a seal, and it holds a seal quite well. So kudos to JPL. And the ink in this one is Rohrer and Klingner. Alt-Bordeaux, which is a little purplier, more purple. Purplier is not a word. A little more purple than the Callifolio Grenat. Callifolio does have a Bordeaux ink, as did Monte Grappa, so I might have to ink up some of that Callifolio Bordeaux to compare just for fun. Or go paging back through this notebook and find out where I used it last. Then I've been using this Pelikan M800 this past week. I don't get this pen out as often as I should. I guess maybe my interest is more vintage. But it's a good pen, and it writes well. I guess I just get more excited by the vintage ones. I have given some thought to curating my collection. As good a pen as it is, there's a possibility that this one might get curated out. But then I write with it and I really enjoy it, so I don't know, maybe keep it. That's why I've been thinking about doing one of those driving videos about curating a collection, but then I'm very good about curating a lot of things, but pens doesn't seem to be one of them. Luckily, they don't take up much space. Their ink does, but the pens themselves don't. Oh, my computer is thinking hard. That fan just took off when I started, and all the computer's doing today is recording audio. It's not even recording video, which is what it was doing down in Sturgis. Okay, this week's review was a Boston Safety pen. I had a bit of a battle to get this pen to start writing down there in Sturgis. So let's see how it does here. I didn't use it at all yesterday because I was on the road. And when I got home, I was editing video footage together for no reason, because started right up, because it failed. I realized after I got it all done that nobody wants to watch frozen picture of the writing sample while I talk about the pen and the writing. They want to see the pen write. They want to see the pen. So that's why I'm doing this. So the ink is Noodlers, Manjiro, Nakahama. Pierre Gustafson made a response video to this that I will link in the video description. And he's much more knowledgeable about safety pens than I am, pens in general. And he's also shows several vintage safety pens, which I do not have. As I mentioned when I reviewed this one, I had looked at a Penkala safety pen, but then the $300 price tag, I just said, nope. So this one will just have to do. Somebody asked me last week, what do I use this music nib on the Sailor Ringless for? Okay, let's be honest. This is a broad nib. This is a pen I use usually when I want to show off an ink. This one, I really want to try this ink out. If it hadn't have been for the next pen, I probably would have put one of those really sheening German ink samples into it that a viewer sent to me that I've been trying, but I already have one of them. Not that it might not happen in the future. I was kind of struggling there, but I think part of it is this cockeyed angle I have to sit at to be under the camera. And then I end up holding, because this pen really does want to be held in a certain way. This ink is Kala Nostalgia. I made the remark when I filmed this in Sturgis that nobody's really talking about these inks, but Mike Madison had a video up where he talked about these inks, so good for him. They are interesting pigmented inks. Very muted colors, which I enjoy sometimes. Sometimes you like those bright, vibrant ones, other times you like this more muted, sedate. Kind of depends on your mood and what you're doing. I know I go through spells where you see a lot of bright inks here, and then I go through other spells where you just see the murky, dark colors like this. No rhyme or reason to it, it just is. So, I mentioned this pen. I'm going to write with it, but before I write with it, I just want to show you, because I couldn't do this in Sturgis, so this is a perk to this. I wrote with Diamine Smoke on the Water, which is a German, I was trying not to show that yet, German special edition, and wow, is that a sheen monster. You kind of forget that there's a nice color underneath all that sheen. Just such a fun ink. And I think it'll be interesting to compare the sheen on Tomoe River paper to the sheen on this paper, because this is a much more absorbent paper. So, my Waterman's 52, which was actually given to me by another YouTuber, who I think was trying to encourage me in the vintage direction, and didn't know that behind the scenes I'd kind of started down that road. The ink in it, again, it's Diamine. Smoke on the Water. Smoke on the water. Fire in your eyes. Turns out my little joke there isn't so far off because they are all based on rock songs. Purple Rain comes from a rocker from a minor neighboring state to North Dakota named Prince. The state's not named Prince, the state is Minnesota. Sort of a suburb of North Dakota. I just heard all the people in Minnesota yelling and hollering, so that was a joke! Minnesota's a little bigger than North Dakota, both in size and in population. Minnesota is also culturally quite similar to North Dakota. I had to take a quick drink of water there. I thought I'd get through this video without it. And by the way, this is still not dry, so we'll come back to the sheen. This is the Geha 722 that now you can see it, that I reviewed, or I did its first impression a while ago, and I told you the whole story about it, disappeared, reappeared. One thing I've been getting wrong is its nib size. This is actually an oblique medium. In the video I called it an oblique broad. But then when I was getting all these comments saying, well, it doesn't look like an oblique, yeah, they're right. Probably because it's an oblique medium. So the ink in it is Sailor Jentle. Fuji-musume. I'll do this test in my reviews to check the obliqueness of a pen. And yeah, there's not much. It is oblique, but it's a medium. Maybe eventually it'll focus. There we go. See, it's oblique. Not making that up. And ever since I found it the second time, I've been writing with it pretty steadily. In fact, after I filmed that video that I didn't need to bother with in Sturgis, I was doing letter writing with it. So a few people are going to get delicate purple ink. I like this color. I had a comment when I did this video that this color is just too pastel. I don't know. Like I said, sometimes you're just in the mood for a pastel color. And my last pen is a Senator, the Silver Fox, because I don't know what it's actually called. And if you're going to put a challenging ink in a vintage pen, this is a good vintage pen to put it in. This is a rugged beast. Just made out of a very good material. So the ink is Iroshizuku, Asa-gao, which I'm told is very alkaline, although I have not measured that for myself. That's one of those things. I know I'm a chemistry teacher, but I just don't have the interest to pursue and measure. But luckily there are people who are interested in doing that. Just like some people look at some of the pens that I buy and restore and they're just like, really? Why don't you get a Waterman's? But I enjoy it. So we all have our things we enjoy. So I did have a bit of a discussion about this channel and what a review is, what a first impression is, and pens in use. It was totally the camera focused on me, but again, you just would be staring at that Parker Duofold. So what I decided to do, I'm going to put, maybe I'll flip between them, maybe I'll take a picture of each, but I'll put this writing sample up and this one, and just show them, because unless you want to stare at a frozen Parker Duofold, you're not going to see much. And then we'll wander around Sturgis for a while. Actually, on that note, I do have a special treat for you next week. It'll be another episode of Pens on the Road, even though I won't be able to be on the road next week, because I stopped in a small town on the way home from Sturgis. Actually, I went all the way to Rapid City, but this was on the way back from Sturgis, and I walked around the town, took footage, and did some grocery shopping, and it was a neat little town. So, I'd been through the town before, I just never paid that much attention to what a cool little town it was. So, that'll be next week's. So, we'll get 2 pens on the road in a row. So, back to Thursday Night Me. So I've had a few questions recently about this channel and how I do pens in use and so on, and reviews and first impressions and all that. So I thought I'd take this opportunity, because I don't really have anything with me, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to try to explain it. So pens in use, those are the pens that I've been using this week. Now I don't keep, well, I do keep lots of pens inked up, but usually 15, 16 pens inked up, and you'll see somewhere normally between 8 to 12 of them in a pens in use. It kind of depends on what actually got used, although I threw that Artisan Classic in there just to see how good its seal was. If I filmed some reviews, or actually not reviews, if I filmed some first impressions but haven't published them yet, those pens are not allowed to appear on the channel, so they don't. Like this lovely Reform here, which I don't know if you can see it. This lovely Monte Rosa. They will, I'll be using them, but I can't show them in pens in use, so I don't. So they're usually carried around with me. Also, usually it gives some pens a break. Like the PenBBS had a break, the Artisan Classic had a break of a few weeks each. I just got bored with PenBBS, and I wanted to test out the Artisan Classic. And so they'll just sit on my desk unused for a few weeks. And then I write with them again as space opens up. It also helps me keep it fresh, so I'm not doing the same pens every week. As a pen gets used up, of course, I clean it out normally. Some pens get re-inked because they're so much fun. But usually I will clean them out. Then I don't normally put ink down the sink unless it gets weird. By weird, I mean like some inks, especially Noodlers inks, if they stay in a pen too long, get to the point where they don't ever dry when you write on the paper, no matter how long you wait. Usually at that point I figure it's not worth keeping, and I clean it out of the pen. If there's an issue with the pen, which actually happened with my Geha 714, that's one of the reasons this Parker Duofold is in use this week as my daily writer. That I had good luck with that Geha 714 with the Lamy cartridge in it, and then I put the Geha cartridge in it. Cleaned out what was in it, although I'm going to try to rehydrate the rest of them, and installed it, and that pen just burped ink constantly. Burp, burp, burp. Ink all over the cap, all over the grip. I think I got more ink on my hands and on tissue paper than I actually did on paper with that pen. Because that was going to be my starter pen for this week, not this Parker Duofold. But that wasn't going. So I'm not sure what the issue was. It wasn't an issue with the Lamy cartridge, so I'll have to figure that out. But where was I? Anyway, so yeah, there's more pens than you see, but I don't just throw ink down the sink because I think that's a waste. I also don't put it back in the bottle. Not sure why, but I don't. So I just empty them out and move on. Now, as for first impressions and reviews, first impression, you're watching me the first time I've ever filmed the video, or used the pen too. I may have repaired it. I may have worked with it with water. Most of my vintage pens get cleaned because I don't know where they've been. But I haven't written with it till you see me on camera writing with it. Now, this pen, this Reform, is going to be Monday's first impression. And that's going to be a little bit different because I forgot to turn on the camera that does the writing sample. Had the writing sample, but forgot to turn on that camera. So I refilmed the writing sample. And don't worry, in the video I announced this is what happened. I listened to my narration during the original writing sample, so I wrote down my original remarks. Some of them were no longer true now that the pen had been inked for a while, which is a problem with a first impression. Sometimes a pen's awesome right off the bat, and then the longer you write with it, it just suddenly stops. And you have to saturate the feed to get it to write again or something. Or sometimes the pen starts out just awful, and then it blossoms under your loving writing. You never know. So what I do when I do the first impression, that's with the idea that you'll probably eventually get a review. Now, I still have some pens that I bought and was using before I started doing first impressions. So that's what most of my videos are, most of my review videos. But what's coming pretty soon, actually, I'm going to run out of those pens. And then it'll be time to go back to those pens I did a first impression and start reviewing them, where I analyze the history of the company, maybe look at the details of the pen. And I've written with it a number of times, so I've got experience with it. I can tell you how I like it based on experience and time rather than just a first impression, because first impressions can be so misleading. So that's what a review is. But the other thing, and I put this really badly when I did my review of the Noodlers Boston Safety Pen. I don't really do negative reviews. I'm not out to bash anybody. Now, that doesn't mean I won't cite the faults in a pen, but if I really hate a pen, I'm not going to review it. I won't write with it again, and then that's that. So if you want to see me bash a pen, come to my first impressions if I get a bad one. Reviews, nope. I'm thinking the Keiko Edge. Cracked. Great first impression. I was actually very impressed with it, but it cracked. The cap cracked. Shouldn't do that. Well, I'm not going to do a review on it because I'm not going to ink it up again. So when I say I don't do negative reviews, that's why. I will talk about the faults of a pen. I talked about some of the faults of that Boston Safety pen, but I won't just bash a pen. And I'm not in the pocket of big vintage pen because this is all financed entirely by me. So anyway, since I am in Sturgis, that's enough of me blathering. Let's go walk around Sturgis, which I will film that tomorrow. So I'm staying at the motel in Sturgis, the Baymont. Part of how I selected it was I just looked for cheap motels in Sturgis, and I found a room for $55. And wait till you see what $55 got me for a night. Admittedly a Thursday night during the winter. But they warned me that this was nice, and she was surprised the teacher was renting this room. So am I now. $55 gets me that seating area. Sort of a kitchenette thing with is that a dishwasher? I don't know what that is. Wine rack for I don't know, I must be having a party. Another sink and a bathroom, and there's more. A whole separate room that's the bedroom, and I've never used one of those. I'm probably not going to tonight either, but it's there, however you use it. So I have to say, for $55, I'm going to have a pretty comfortable evening. And we'll see you later. I think this room is bigger than my house. Not going to lie. Sturgis is a town of about 7,000 people, but every year it swells to about 500,000 due to the motorcycle rally held in Sturgis in August of every year. Largest motorcycle rally in the world. And you can see that reflected in the businesses. And I think it's interesting that this one says open all year, because there are businesses all over Sturgis that are only open during that motorcycle rally. Now, in fairness, it brings about 800 million people to the... Yeah, see, there's one. 800 million people to the city, or $800 million to the city. But what does that do to the flavor of a town? Now, I'm not going to come to any conclusions here because I don't live there, but that bar just fascinated me. But, you know, the number of tattoo parlors, for example, all the different kind of businesses that would not be there if it weren't for this motorcycle rally. What does that do to their culture? And I don't know, because I don't live there. You know, a lot of traffic comes through my town to get to Sturgis. During a few weeks in August, you'll see the motorcycles lined up on Main Street in my town. But we don't depend on it the way Sturgis does. We're just on the way. We get all the... Well, we're a filter, if you knew the highways here. That said, Sturgis has a very nice Main Street. It has all the businesses that you would expect as a motorcycle museum, which most towns don't have. I'm told that people who live there often go on vacation during the motorcycle rally, rent out their house for that week or two, and make a lot of money. Okay, makes sense. But then look at that. 3-story bar and that whatever it is behind it. How does that work? Or this bar. How do these work during the rest of the year when the motorcycle rally isn't going on? I saw people at them, but they must feel just awfully empty. I can't imagine. I don't know. Jack Daniels is apparently popular at this bar. But anyway, I've been told that, and it is in a great setting, and there's a regular grocery store. But I've been told that Sturgis, you can't really get through it during the motorcycle rally. It'll take hours, and I believe it. I'm also told that you can get quite an education during those hours going through it. Believe that too. It's just a very different kind of town. Kind of tourism taken to extremes. And I need to tour a few more tourist-type towns. I think it is good for the town in a lot of ways. You know, a normal town this size might not have all this business, but at the same time, yipe.